I'm Elliot Reeves, this is Alan Nash, and you're watching The Elliot Reeves Show. Alan, it's brilliant to have you here, my friend.
Well, I really appreciate the invite.
It's a
kind
pleasure.
of out of the blue and didn't see anything like this coming, and thanks for taking the time. I'm really delighted to be here, and what a great setup you've got.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've been talking about this beforehand. It's amazing how much you don't see when you're watching it through, it's like the lens of the camera doesn't tell all the story.
I think that's probably why behind the scenes sort of footage of things are so popular. When you actually see what goes into a production, what you've just told me about what you've got to do to produce a inspired Edinburgh show, I mean, it's impressive, and the commitment there is, it's just outstanding, the effort that you will go to produce your quality show. Even in here, you've got more kit than I've seen in bigger studios, but you put out a good product, and obviously you know what it takes. Well, again, that comes through a long time and a lot of practice, but I really appreciate you saying that, so thank you. No, I mean, it's but you can see it from the guests you've had and the way the profile's grown. I mean, I've watched the videos, the way you must edit, the time it takes. I can see your setup over there. The product is so crucial to what you're putting out, and that's what, obviously, as I'm now in the podcasting world, I know that if I want to improve and build what I'm giving, or the podcast that I put has got to be of good quality, or guests won't want to come on, people won't be interested, they won't listen, whether it's sound quality, snippets for social media, whatever we do, it's got to be the best of our ability.
100%. I think the way that that's kind of how I've always looked at it, is ultimately your content is very much a reflection of yourself, or certainly it speaks about what you're like as a person, and I kind of pride myself in some respects to be quite perfectionistic, and certainly putting out the content, I'm very aware of that. I think that sometimes gets in the way, actually, of putting stuff out. I think sometimes I'm kind of cautious, or if I'm not certain about the intention of the thing that I'm creating, I usually won't publish stuff.
I'm certainly a bit more rough and ready.
That's good, though.
And what
That's good.
Obviously, I think it was episode 18 you were on my podcast.
Yeah.
And, you met Keith, my producer. He owns the studio, so I don't have this this setup. Certainly, I go to Keith's studio and he's got it all set up for me.
Yeah.
So I organise the guest, and that certainly can be time consuming. The commitment and time you've got to do to maybe getting rejections, to maybe getting a quick yes, and you've then got to book it in around everything else that goes on in life.
Yeah.
But here you doing absolutely everything yourself, whereas I bring people in, we have the conversations, I do my research prior. Then Keith will do the editing if anything needing tweaked or sorted, or, like I was saying before, recently recorded in a restaurant.
Yeah.
And we had to take out the sound of the fridges in the background, which we thought was going to be okay, but it picked it up. But I've got somebody to do that for me.
Yes.
Because the way my life works with business and kids, I can't give the time that maybe you can to produce the shows.
Absolutely. I mean, would you rather have it the way that you currently do it?
I like the way I do it.
Yeah.
I like working with people, and Keith Easton up at the Well Podcast Studio. I've met a great guy.
Yeah. He's a lovely guy.
You've met Keith, and when you go in there, and when I communicate with him and I speak to him, I've got a new mate. And we're 41 episodes in now, I think.
That's awesome.
But every time we chat, we have a bit of a laugh, we have a giggle. Off mics is always, the banter, as they say.
Yeah.
But for the 40th episode, I actually sat down with Keith and we did a show together. And we chatted about each other, because after 40 episodes, Keith and I had been together in a small room, for many, many hours, but hadn't literally chatted, because I would come in with guests. We tend not to speak to the guests too much prior to the show. And from there, we're live, we're recording. Yeah. And I'm not sort of interacting with Keith, how was your weekend, what's been going on. Podcast finishes, it gets wrapped up, see you later, Keith, and off we go.
Yeah.
So it's actually great to sit down with him a couple of weeks ago and just chat about things and hear about his life and his business and how he's built his podcast studio. Because this world that we're in, it's very exciting. It's for me, and we can get into that, why I got into podcasting, but there's so many famous people doing it, so many opportunities just to get stuff out there, get a message across and learn and take a lot from podcasts, when you might have usually been dead time on a commute or time you've wasted. Now you can put a podcast on and listen to all sorts.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, 100%. I mean, I look at, you know, the way that you're doing that with having a producer, and I know that, like, I mean, James English is another Scottish podcaster who has a team of people doing the work. He's the interviewer, and that's his role. And there's elements of me that are maybe slightly envious, because it's like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have someone just do that part for me? The flip side of it, and this is the bit that I struggle with the most, is the delegation of that responsibility to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I need to trust that it would be up to my standards, and it probably never would be, because ultimately it's my creation, it's my baby, and it's like, I need to kind of make this the way that I want it to look. And if it's not, then I'm like, I would be disappointed.
Yeah, but it's working out what you can maybe sacrifice and delegate that will keep your product being at that level that you want to just, you can work harder on getting guests in. You can work harder on the social media side. Mm-hmm. If it's somebody that can sit, you could send this content to a production company and they cut, edit, and it comes back and you watch it. As long as, in my opinion, as long as the message is there, it's clear, it's good content that goes out, you can take care of the other bits and pieces. So maybe that's worth considering and chopping and changing a wee bit, taking a bit more of the pressure off you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But like you say, delegating, you might go through 2, 3, 4, 5 companies, people, until you get somebody you can really work with. I've been fortunate with Keith that, I mean, I'd listened to a handful of podcasts before I recorded my first one.
Is that right?
That's it.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was April 2018, or maybe sort of March 2018, thereabouts. I'd listened to probably a Joe Rogan podcast or something, but I'd heard about the way social media and everything's evolving, and the way the newspapers sort of out of fashion, branding taxis. I was quite traditional with my property company, quite traditional in how do you get the message across that you manage properties, that you sell flats and things like that. Mm-hmm. We have the Twitter account, we have the Facebook, and I run all that for my company. But podcasting, I was listening, and I think it was a show that I had listened to about the benefits of podcasting for a company. And I thought, well, how could I use something like that? So I started listening to podcasts, and then for me and my background, it's heavily involved in the property industry and the rugby world. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So hence I created the Property Rugby Club podcast. Mm-hmm. Because I want to stay connected to the property industry, talk about property and talk about Edinburgh, but rugby is such an interest to me as well. So I thought I'll combine them. Mm-hmm. Who do I know that... So all I was going to do was put a phone down in the middle of a table, press record, and I thought I'll have a podcast and I'll update it. Yeah. The first person I invited on knew Keith at the Well podcast studio and said, well, Nashy, instead of doing it in your office on the phone, speak to Keith. And that was it. It was born. And Keith just ran with it. Yeah, right. So that's how it all began. Because just at my age, at 35, I'm not playing rugby anymore. Mm-hmm. So I'm not around the changing room. I'm not around the players as much, the clubhouse when I can. But I've usually got my kids with me, so I'm not sort of networking, or the business head isn't on a Saturday afternoon all the time. How do I stay connected in the rugby world with my property background and the Property Rugby Club, combined the two? So that's what happened. So maybe networking events I would throw, but to get the sort of feel of rugby world knows that Alan works in property. Most people need to have something to sell, maybe something needs managed, or maybe something needs maintained and repaired. Yeah. My services are there, and that's how I built the Property Rugby Club. Which was originally a figment of my imagination, but it turned into something that people were quite interested in. Yeah. And turned that into the podcast, where I would bring in a guest, a professional rugby player, and a property professional, and we'd chat for an hour about property and how sportsmen have insurance needs and all sorts of things, and combine that. And it's grown from there.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, but that was it.
So when you started it originally, I mean, what was your intention, or perhaps your expectation of what the podcast might do for your business?
On that side of things, I've no idea.
Right.
Right at the start, no idea. I've owned the Ace property for 14 years, and that's been my steady. I've tried lots of other things that are in the background and failed many times in other businesses. And podcasting, who knows? I might stop it one day. But at the moment, it was another thing. I thought, I'm going to get into that. I'm going to try it. I've got no problem standing in front of crowds and talking. I've got no problem sitting here, putting the earphones on and going for it and having a chat. Discovered what podcasting was, and thought, I can probably do that. I can probably sit and interview. And the first couple, if you go back to episode 1 and 2, they're probably not very good. You know, they're not tailored. I've got written notes. I'm trying to do all my intros with people in the room, and I'm getting Keith's on like take 10, take 11. I'm just getting it wrong.
Okay.
But that's what happens, you know?
Yeah.
So what happened? The first game of rugby was probably rubbish. But my first anything was probably rubbish. First 10. You have to just keep repeating.
Yeah.
But as people started to listen and comment, and as it grows, it takes time. But I'm definitely seeing people. Nashy, I listened to the podcast that you were talking about insurance on properties. Can I come in and see you? Or maybe a rugby player or something. So it definitely has up to my profile.
Yes.
To the point that
for sure.
Ace Property, I'm the new. I take all the new business and I go and do all the new pitches. That's my role within the business, and as I've structured it as it's grown, along with owning and running the business, that's sort of my core responsibilities. So from there, it's definitely opened doors. It's definitely got me to places and invites that I would never have been. Which in those rooms I can maybe network. I can talk about what I'm doing. But on the flip side, and as the podcast has evolved, it isn't. I'm currently evolving it right now into. It's called Get After It with Nashy.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of dropping the Property Rugby Club side of it. So it will be Get After It with Nashy, brought to you by Ace Property and the Property Rugby Club. So that's the way I will change it. And we'll get into maybe later why I'm changing the name. But I've evolved it because talking about property and rugby every episode, again, it was getting the same content every week. And then guests, you're just inviting different rugby players talking about the same things, which I didn't want to sort of get pigeonholed in that. Hence, it's evolved into. We've had some similar guests on, and Mark Beaumont and Everest Summiteers and
Gavin Bell.
Gavin Bell was on. To #1 best-selling authors and things like that I've diversified into other avenues. And what that's done is put me and my podcast into. I had an Olympic judo fighter on, so there's other people in judo that listen to that podcast and they hear Ace Property and they hear Alan Nash and they think, oh, maybe I'll go there. I've got the flat to sell, I've got the flat to rent, and it creates opportunities. So it's been another, as an add-on. People have social media. Podcasting for businesses, people should really think about it. They should really think about it. It's 100%. Time consuming. You've got to be dedicated. But I love it.
Well, that's it. I think if it's born from passion, then that's the reason for doing it. You know, I would never necessarily advocate someone podcasting with the objective of, say, making money out of it, because I don't think it's certainly not the podcast in and of itself.
No.
I think that's a fairly brutal way of doing it, is trying to make money, but certainly as a means to just putting your content out, content marketing, it's great for that. Just to come back, I've got a few questions bouncing around, but I'll tackle this one first. You asked me before we started here whether I got nervous, and I've done episodes and episodes of content over years, and so I don't get nervous. It's just the sort of the anticipation, or the sort of little slight butterfly feeling of like, oh, this is cool, we're going to do a conversation. But what about yourself then? Like, do you find
nerves every time?
See,
I was an extremely nervous rugby player.
Is that
extremely
right?
For Watsonians and age group stuff and whatever I did in rugby back in sort of my late teens and through my 20s. I would be the guy being sick in the changing room before.
Is that right?
Terrible. My worst game was always Watsonians versus Aberdeen Grammar. The nerves on a 3-hour bus trip. It's horrendous. And a lot of players can relate. A lot of players go through the same thing. The famous thing I always remember, the British Lions, and I forget the year, but they were in South Africa years ago.
97, I think.
Living with the Lions is the movie.
That's brilliant.
They're doing the team talk, and it's Ian Evans. You can hear him spewing his load, guts everywhere.
I thought Dalalio was a spewer as well, but maybe I don't know.
So I was like that, 100%.
Wow.
I wouldn't eat. The morning of a game, I would hardly eat. On a Friday, I would eat. I'd be fine, but I'd usually be working, so my head's elsewhere. Saturday on a game, I wouldn't eat. I would be able to get through a game on very little food and energy. Well, I'd have the energy.
Yeah.
You get there when you get to the game and you see the guys and warm-ups, and I would always get through it and be starving after the game. But I was bad for that. My mum would always worry I wasn't eating before a game. It's just the way I did it. And I know there's many guys that can relate. So podcasting, there's always nerves as the guest's going to turn up, you know. But a few late calls. I've never had a call off. I've never missed an episode that's been booked, which has been great. The guests have been fantastic. But on the flip side, there's that. Then you get there, and are my questions any good? Am I going to be able to keep it going?
Mhm.
What if this guest isn't a talker?
Yeah,
You know, what if you've
yeah,
invited somebody that isn't going to give a bit back?
yeah.
Fortunately, I've got to a stage now where the guests have always been great, and they've always, if they've been rugby players, they're used to speaking after matches or
Yes.
interacting with fans, referees, coaches. So they're no problem talking.
Mhm.
Property people sometimes don't have they're not speaking openly all the time. You sometimes got to work your way to get them talking. But authors, no problem. They all the time. Adventurers, people that have sort of done the circuit,
Mhm.
it can be great and it can really flow.
Yes.
But no, definitely get nervous before every episode. I was nervous coming here. I don't know. And what's great about this is I'm your guest. I've never done that before.
Yeah, yeah.
So every guest I've had on must maybe felt like I did since we booked this in. What's he
Mhm.
going to talk? What are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
What's he going to ask me? What if I
Yeah.
don't know the answer? What if I can't give him an answer? That's been going through my mind. So, but now that we're rolling and we're recording, it's like, yeah, crack on.
Yeah.
Let's go. You get into sort of a comfort zone.
Yes. Oh, completely. Well, you know, I honestly think that after probably 10, maybe 15 minutes, you just become, it's me and you in a room having a chat.
Mhm.
You forget that these are running, you forget that there's video cameras or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, it's you and I are having a conversation, and anyone that wishes or chooses to listen to that thereafter, that's great.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, that's what we see with the main man is Joe Rogan and his podcast.
Yeah.
And his setup obviously is unbelievable. I'd love to go and see his
Yeah.
facility and
Mhm.
his man cave and everything he's got out there. However, he just sits across the table and he doesn't give a shit if it's the president or the queen or whoever. I think he'd still smoke a
Oh,
joint,
totally.
chill out,
Yeah,
offer
yeah.
a whiskey. He'd get drunk with Elon Musk every day of the week if he had. He doesn't care about Tesla and them dropping stock
Yeah.
market points.
No, of course.
He just wants a conversation.
Yes.
And that's what I don't struggle with, but I always come into my podcasts with questions. But I really like it when, if I have two guests on, they start talking to each other. Like
Yeah,
you and
that's
Mike
cool.
McRail, you start asking each other
Yeah.
questions or having a laugh.
Mhm.
When guests, my job, and I suppose your job, is to say as little as possible,
Well,
you know,
yeah, pretty much.
to get as much out of the guest as you can.
Yeah, yeah. I think so. I mean, I've always looked at my role, less so in this environment, more so in Inspired Edinburgh, as just a conduit for conversation. So I'm just facilitating or trying to bring the best things out of the guest.
Mhm.
And so I should just kind of pale a little bit into the background. It's not about me or trying to get my personality across. It's me trying to get the best stuff from them and being their friend and making them feel comfortable to be able to share their kind of deepest and darkest stuff.
What I also like to do with guests is with Edinburgh, and with me having built this Ace property business, I'm conscious of how hard that was 14 years ago. And we went through a credit crunch and we went through a lot of ups and downs, and we still are. And every day I'm there, I'm fighting fires and about the things I've got to do as an owner. But there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit in Edinburgh and a lot of rugby players that have businesses and they're thinking of the future after. So I bring on a lot of guys that and girls that maybe have new businesses and new startups, and I like to promote. And it's as simple as that. As simple as that. Come on, talk about your business. Genius Beers was one. I see them on Twitter. They're the healthy, low-calorie beer, and they were doing a lot with the Doddy Beer campaign. So one morning I just tweeted, "Hey, don't know who you are. It's a Genius Beer Twitter account. So it's not Malcolm at Genius Beer or anything.
Okay.
Would anyone want to come on and talk?" Instantly, straight back, would love to. They came on, we talked about Genius Beer, and I got to know a bit about brewing. I got to know a bit about the production, the marketing, how they're building that business. And now I follow them regularly, I promote them, I tweet them as much as I can.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's happened quite regularly. And I love it. I love to see the new business. If I can give someone a bit of platform, they don't pay anything, they don't need it. I want to hear about their business.
Yeah.
I want to hear what they're doing, the ups, the downs, the stress, the sleepless nights that it takes to get a business going.
Yeah.
That makes me tick.
I
love it.
Super cool. Super cool. It's funny, like, often my biggest fear when I was doing like interviews, podcasting, was that is there going to be dead air? Is there going to be situations where I just have nothing and there's nothing to say, and like, how embarrassing would that be?
Yeah.
But the reality is now, and I suppose as advice for anyone that does this or wants to do this, is that ultimately you can just open your mouth and words will fall out and you'll be okay, and you can find your train of thought, or you can, you know, kind of meander through your whatever it is that you're saying.
Yeah.
to come onto a new point.
Or I can flip. I don't know if there was a question there. And I can flip it around and say, "Do you believe in aliens?" and then off we go.
Yeah.
And then off we go on a tangent. What about ghosts, Bigfoot, things like that? And I mean, you can just go off on a tangent, and someone might come in. I'm here to talk about whatever. I'm not here to promote anything, talk anything, but we've got common ground in podcasting, and you've been on my show and all that. But you want to talk about aliens, you want to talk about Bigfoot and all that sort of stuff.
I think we're obligated to now.
That's why I brought it up. But that's the beauty of a conversation.
Yes.
There's no hidden agenda or anything. It's just
not at all.
Have a chat, and people will sit and listen on buses, on trains, on commutes. And that's maybe, I don't know when you put your podcasts out.
Mm-hmm.
Keith turns mine round as quick as he can. So if I record on a Wednesday, we always put it out sort of 6 a.m. on a morning.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes beep on the iPhone or whatever people are listening on, and they can listen on the commute. And my pod's generally 45 minutes to an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they run over, but that's generally between home to work.
Yes.
45 minutes, people can consume the content, or they'll finish it on the way home if they remember.
Yeah.
But that's how we've done it, and we learned how to do that.
Yeah, of course. It's a good strategy, actually. I like that. We'll come back to aliens and Bigfoot because I think that's a really interesting topic. I want to go back to your early life and kind of growing up and all that stuff. But just before we get there, I just have one question about the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a bit of a tricky question, but who was the guest that was most unexpected? Or, who was the guest that surprised you the most?
As in a great, or actually just said yes to come on?
Well, just like in general, I guess like once they arrived, they just surprised you in a way that they weren't necessarily like what you expected that they might be, or that they were, worse than they.
But no, I think there's a guy, Damien Hughes, and he's the author of The Barcelona Way. Mm-hmm. And he is one of the psychology advisors for the SRU. So there was a bit of a connection through rugby. Mm-hmm. And I contacted him, and he said yes, and fantastic. And I read his book, The Barcelona Way. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, he was in Edinburgh, but then he ruptured his Achilles and had to go back to Manchester. So we did the interview over Skype.
Oh.
But the accessibility to a best-selling author, the way he opened up, the way he discussed everything, the things he offered afterwards when he's in Edinburgh, let's catch up. Mm-hmm. I can't thank him enough, and he by no means is the podcast overly established or anything like that, but he just immediately said yes, no problem, I'll come on and chat. I know you're connected a wee bit to rugby. Mm-hmm. He gave me a lot of time. He was very kind, and off mic is also a great time when the camera, or we don't really record my podcast but on film, but when the mics are off, he stayed on. Keith's looking at me going, we're staying here all night, what are we doing? We just had a great chat. So Damien was he was a great guest. Mark Beaumont, I know he's been on your show quite a few times. He was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And with my fitness side of things that I do, I always say when my kids are sleeping, I'm out training or doing something. He talked about going on bike rides and things like that, and getting my sort of core group of friends that we train together. Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I find that these people come on, and they're not instantly pals or we're best friends now and great, I'll phone you, but they are very great with their time. Yeah, they do seem to they want to be there. They're present when they're on the podcast. I've had a selection of great guests. Mm-hmm. No one's really surprised, because a lot of them are relatively in rugby world or sporting terms or Olympians and things like that. They've maybe been. I know who they are, and I know that they've got some great stories. Yeah. But a guy that I haven't met yet, and I'd love to, is a former Marine called Mark Omrod. Now, we did Skype. He's in Plymouth, and several years ago he was at war, and he lay down on an IED and lost both his legs and his left arm. So to take inspiration from a guy like that, and talk to him, and he told me his story and Invictus Games, everything he's done, to just sit like this and no one else in the room, and I'm on the phone on Skype to him, listening to his story, but I knew what the kind of passion he would bring to it, because I follow him on Instagram, follow him on Twitter, and he's just inspiring all day. And it's guys like that, when I get the chance 2 years ago, I didn't have no reason to speak to these guys. Now that the podcast gives me a bit of it makes it possible to reach out to people and say, would you like to come in for a chat and tell me your story, and I want to learn about your business, I want to hear about you. I had no right to do that 2 years ago, and podcasting has given me that. Yeah. So I now interact with Mark, whether it be a like on his recent post or or a high five when he does something unbelievable. He's a jiu-jitsu fighter when he does all that sort of stuff with no legs and one arm. What excuse do I have not to get up in the morning? Now I've spoken to this guy and I know he's in my world, kind of. I have no excuses to not go for that run or to not get up and try my best when there's people out there that they've got a tougher day than I have. So podcasting's brought that to me. It really has. And from the business side, there's people that have affected me with the entrepreneurial spirit. And there's, as I said, the entrepreneurs that I've met with that are building businesses. And even Mike McCrail, when he was on talking about GetGo, he used it to start something really exciting. And that's what I think, because I didn't know Mike. I'd never met him, and it was just LinkedIn. I think I sent him a message. I think something was bubbling away that he was building, and obviously he did say he announced it on the podcast, and I got the text message after, Nashy, when's this going out? I've not told anyone else. And I was like, it'll be live tomorrow morning. He was like, shit, let me get some promotion out to tell people it's called GetGo before it goes out in the podcast. But guys like Mike, they excite me.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing things, they're getting out of their bed, they're making new things and they're putting content out, or other guys are climbing mountains and running 200-mile races, and these people are around me now that I can contact and say, I'm going to be here at this, do you want to catch up? And it happens. I love it. It's been great.
Who is the one guest out of everyone on the planet that you would most like to sit down with?
Well, can I give you two?
Okay.
Well, I think the obvious one is Joe Rogan.
Oh wow, okay.
I often think if the shit hits the fan, what would Joe Rogan do? I mean, that guy, he's got it. You know, some people may be against his hunting and all that, this, that, and the other, and smoking weed.
He's so alpha.
It's so alpha, but a spade's a spade.
Yeah.
He's extremely intelligent, or he says he's not. He's a moron, but he's got a good memory.
Wow.
He's extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
He's into a lot of things that I'm into. But the other thing is, see about Joe Rogan, he's 50. You know, at 35, you're thinking, oh, hold on, I've got 15 years here. I'm never going to be as big as that celebrity, and I don't want that, but I've got a lot of time to do stuff. What if I do want to get into martial arts? He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. What if I do want to do that? I can still do it. But the one person I'd want to interview, and the cool thing about social media is the guy interacts with me. His name's Jesse Itzler.
Oh wow, okay.
Have you heard of him?
Yeah, David Goggins.
David Goggins, living with a seal. Yeah, I follow him. And people, if they follow me on Instagram, they'll see me tagging him and this and that, but he responds. Now this guy owns an NBA team.
He's a billionaire.
His wife's a billionaire. She owns Spanx, the garments that ladies put underneath their clothes to hold everything in. I think that's what they do. My wife tells me.
Take your word for it.
Yeah, but his wife owns Spanx, which is a well-known brand, but he owned Marquis Jets and he sold it to Warren Buffett. He's owned lots of businesses, so he's a hugely successful multimillionaire in his own right. Yeah. But he's 50. He's a father of 4 young kids, and he is just hilarious. Yeah. And he gets up, he runs 100-mile races. He does ultraman. He does all sorts of things. He had David Goggins in his house with him for a month and wrote the book Living with a Seal, which I love that book. Yeah. And social media makes people almost approachable, accessible. I'm sure you, like me, put out lots of messages on Instagram to randoms that I should have no right to speak to. But in every time I do that behind the scenes, saying, would you like podcast invite? Try and get their attention. And then bit of info. So if I'm trying to get some famous marine or fitness guy, I'll be saying I've had on Mark Ormrod, had on Colin McLaughlin, all these sorts of guys from the SES show. That's who I've had on. This is who I am. This is what I do. I'd love to chat. More often than not, they don't get back. But it's in their messages, and then you go on to their actual page the next time they post, hi, Joe Blogs, sent you a message. Let me know what you think. And then they start to be a bit of interaction. Yeah. But going back to your question, Jesse Itzler, he's a guy that, and I've messaged him saying, one day, you don't know it yet, you don't know me, but we're going to have a chat on my podcast. And you never know, he just might. Yeah. You know? Totally. But he's got 4 kids and I've got 3. And his are similar ages to mine. And I can relate. I can relate. Him and his wife, they have a really funny social media profile where they both sort of communicate and put their holidays on and the things that everything's going great on the family holiday, and then one of the kids is sick, one of them's fallen off their bike, and I'm crying with laughter because that's my daily occurrence. It's awesome.
I expected you to say Jocko Willink, actually. What I thought you would say.
Jocko, he's another one. He's another one that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Be amazing. And I think the guy Mark Ormron, who I had, is going on Jocko's podcast in October, November.
Oh, wow.
Because Mark's obviously got such a interesting military story.
Mm-hmm.
But Jocko, a guy, I mean, you'd love to get these kind of guys, but I don't know. You've got to push yourself, and you've got to, but at some point, just now for me, it's not worth my time trying to get them on.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've got to gradually build away. It's like everything, it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
But say in 5 years' time, one of those happens, and you get someone on. In podcasting terms, you get someone like that on, it can change your podcast, it can change your life. The amount of listeners someone like Jocko would get.
That's it. I was
or
going to say
downloads
that.
or things like that. You
that
get
would
one
give somebody
A-lister.
massive exposure.
You get one A-lister.
Game changer, yeah.
Absolute game changer.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to keep pushing
Mm-hmm.
and keep trying.
Yeah.
But that's no disrespect to any other guest, because every guest I've had on, I've loved it. I've loved it, and I've got a guy who just spoke to him today. He's a strongman, lives in Haddington. Scottish strongman, ex-military, ex-marine. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah,
And he's currently training. I think he's not training, but he lifts the Dinny stones, which is when you see in the strongman on TV, the massive stones.
Yeah.
That's one of his things he does. I want to know all about that.
What did you call them?
Dinny stones?
Dinny stones.
I think so.
The Atlas. I think.
The
I know
Atlas are the round ones. The
Yeah,
Dinny stones
right,
are different shapes. And
Oh,
I think they go up in
right.
scale and up in weight.
Oh, right, okay.
But he's in Haddington.
Jeez.
He's in the next village to me in East Lothian. And it was through friends at CrossFit down at East Rocks. They said, what about getting Big Kenny on, Nashy? I was like, who's Big Kenny? Researched them, Instagram. We're chatting today. I'll phone him tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's how these things happen.
Yeah.
But that guy really interests me.
Mm-hmm.
Mindset of a Marine.
You're really into the mindset stuff, eh?
Well, I'm new to it.
Right, okay.
I'm new to it. Only the last couple of years. Everything's changed personally since I started podcasting. I mean that. Because the people that I've met, and like I said previously, the people that I've had access to,
Mm-hmm.
these are exceptional people, some of them. So 200-mile races. That guy, Conor O'Keefe, he just completed on Monday 8 marathons in 8 days. Lives in Ireland, and I spoke to him on Skype. He made me run my first marathon the day that I interviewed him on the podcast. Because I said to myself, this guy ran 200 miles in 58 hours, right? And everyone else stopped the race. He was the only one that finished it. I haven't even run a marathon. How can I possibly relate to this guy? Or have any feeling of... So I sat hardly able to walk in my podcast studio with Keith. That morning I'd run a marathon, my first one.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's running 200 miles, but had a wee sort of sample of what he must have felt like. And he inspired me to do that. And now, weekly, we're in touch.
Yeah. Right.
Messages. I've invited him to Edinburgh. Come to the festival. What you doing? What's happening? You got to get these people around you. Get these people with that mindset and that drive, and bring them into your world and thrive off them. So I love it. It's great. But podcasting's done that. Meeting guys like Mark Beaumont.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cycled around the world.
Yeah. Twice.
Twice. Well, yeah, he's done it twice, let alone everything else he does.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the shops. I'll take the bike, I can't be honest. These guys are out there. And they're actually, we can get to them. And once you get sort of a small portion of them, and you go, look at his drive. Have I got any of that in me? So since I started getting access to these people, sniffing out Kenny, the strongman from Haddington, who competes in Scottish strongman.
Yeah.
I want to meet Kenny. He lives in the next village. What's he like? What was his marine career like? That really interests me, because I know I'll take a bit away from that.
So what do you think is the thread that connects all of these high performance individuals?
A lot of them just don't know how to quit. Tons of them don't know how to quit. They're always going to get started. They'll always turn up, and then they don't quit until they finish, or their body won't let them. Even when Mark Ormron, his injuries, he's never quit. He was resuscitated. He talks about on the podcast. He was in such a bad state as the rest of his body was just put in the corner while they thought they were saving someone else. Then Mark started moving. He's still alive. This guy's still doing jiu-jitsu with one arm.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is an inspiration to me. Every day he's out smashing it. And then, like we talk about, we had a guy, Ricky Mundy. He failed his Everest attempt. I hope I get this right. Failed his Everest in, I think, November, October 2018. And his friend, they both had to come down. I'm not sure. I think they'd just missed the death zone. But his friend lost fingers through frostbite.
Is that right?
But Ricky went back. Sorry, it was 2000. I'm a year ahead of myself. But Ricky went back the following May and summited.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't quit. Failed it, going back, and done it. Did it. Now he's travelling the UK and speaking and talking to kids and inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And he came on my podcast. Now, we used to play rugby against each other. He was at Glasgow Hawks and I was at Watsonians. So there's a bit of history there that I knew him. Ricky, how are you? And he said on LinkedIn, I'm going to be in Edinburgh. Is there anyone who'd like me to come into their school, their business, talk about my Everest experience? I said, Ricky, podcast, fancy it? So he was very early in maybe, I think, episode 4 or 5 to get an Everest summiteer on. It was brilliant. And I didn't instantly climb Ben Nevis or anything like that, but he inspired me that that guy didn't quit.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to keep climbing things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these guys have all got that in common. Whether Olympians, had you and Burton on, he was fantastic. I've known you, and he's trained a lot of the rugby
He's a judo
players.
player.
Judo, yeah. Commonwealth gold and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, there's a mindset there of just not quitting. And it's kind of recharged me that I'm not one of these athletes or one of these ultimate, but I can do more.
Mm-hmm.
I can certainly do more. I can certainly get out of my bed in the morning.
I
can certainly, instead of hitting I'll put the kids to bed with Abby and my wife. You go through the routines and there's stuff to be done about the house, but before I sit down, I'm going out. I'm going to do something. So I made sure I had stuff in the garage that I can train with. I make sure I can go to the beach and run or just get out and do a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, and I'm quite open. I've got no problem saying it since I started podcasting.
Well, and this was going to lead on to my next question, I guess, is that, in what way is the you today different to the you prior to starting podcasting, and how much of that would you attribute to the podcast itself?
I think fitness-wise and health-wise and what the kids do, we do more with our time now. There's less dead time. Than even when I'm speaking to people saying, actually, did you really run a half marathon on Monday night? Yeah, I did. I will run Long Nidri to North Berwick. That's my route. I like that. I can do that, get an ice cream and get the train home. That's it. That makes me happy. And if the kids are asleep, Abs knows I'm going. She'll be busy herself. She often runs from Long Nidri to Edinburgh for work, 14 miles. Whoa. And I'll pick her up. We'll come home, and we've both got into that sort of challenge mindset. Like, what are you doing? How many did you do? 12. I've got to go. That literally is how our life is at the moment, and we love it.
Yeah, right.
We love it. We push each other.
Yeah, that's brilliant in a relationship to have that.
But I think time is how we use our time's changed.
Okay.
But how we eat food's changed.
Mm-hmm.
We cook outside on open flame fires in the garden.
Really?
Yeah, all the time. You look at my Instagram, I'm cooking steaks and eggs and
I've
bacon.
seen that. I didn't know that was like a habitual thing.
As regularly as we can, being sensible about it. It takes a bit of setup in this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
As often as we can. But you know why? Because when the kids are there, they want to be there.
Okay.
If we're at the oven, don't go near the oven. There's all that. It's different. There's an open fire, an open flame. We're like, do you want to stir it? Which doesn't really make sense. However, around the fire, the family's together. There is no TV in the background. There is phones because I'll maybe put it on Instagram and things, but they're not asking, can I watch this or Peppa Pig or things. The fire brings them in. And they know that we're going to eat out that pan. Mm-hmm. It's all set up and it's nice meals, and then we put real effort into it because Abby's an outstanding cook. She's amazing at anything. When birthdays are coming and things like that, I know the brownies are coming and all that sort of stuff. So bacon and you name it, she's fantastic. So she's inspired me to cook more, and I absolutely love it now. I absolutely love it. But getting around the fire and getting the family together, that's time well spent. Mm-hmm. Whereas sometimes we are still, kids, there's your dinner, we've got to do that, we've got to do this, we'll eat ourselves later. You just try to keep the kids busy. But when we're realising more, we've got to be present with them. We've got to be there with them. It's the fact of the matter, I'll probably work more a week than I see my kids. And that's so many people are in that environment and in that lifestyle that I try to change that as much as possible. So if I come home, changed, put the coals on, what's for dinner, what we're doing, let's get that on, and the kids, they bring their own seats. They know what's about to happen. And for a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old, I want that to be their memories. This is what we do. And then there'll be times that I come home from work, and when they're old enough, they'll have lit the fire already, and they're cooking for us because it is very easy.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, I have people now messaging me, what coals do you use, Nashy? Where do I get a fire pit? That's not why I did it. I just started showing people this is how we live and this is what we do. Mm-hmm. And it's all come from that sort of side of things. I've got a couple of guys that I train with on Saturday mornings. One's a farmer, so he produces his own meat. he took us to his house one morning for a farm fitness session, and then he opened the grill on his thing and he had steaks and everything, steak and eggs for breakfast. I was like, I'm cooking outside tonight. That inspired me. And the other guy Alistair Dickinson, ex-Scotland international player, I've known him for many, many years. We trained together, but we've got really common interests in being outdoors. And we have fire pits after just about every Saturday morning session. Kids, family, bacon and eggs, cooking it in front of us, get the sandwich, get it together. And it's just become kind of what we do. And it's a wee environment that we're creating that isn't online, it isn't overly sophisticated. It's just something we love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, when you ask about time and what's changed for me, using time better.
Yeah.
Because we all don't have enough of it.
No, you're absolutely spot on. 100%. So, I mean, in between business, podcasting, running, kids, grilling,
yeah.
How do you wind down? What do you do?
Grilling and cooking definitely is a wind down.
Yeah.
I'll probably cook tonight. If it's dry when we get outside, I'll probably cook tonight. How do I wind down? We love movies.
Yeah.
We do. That does happen. And we're not completely, it's not as if we've cancelled subscriptions and get that out the window. And no, movies. We just watched, I hadn't seen it, my wife saw it in the cinema, A Star is Born with Bradley Cooper.
Yeah,
and Lady
yeah.
Gaga. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
That character, Jackson Maine, that Bradley Cooper, he's a dude. Regardless, I know he's a drug-taking alcoholic and all that. I just thought, what a character he was.
Yeah, he was brilliant in that
He
part,
was
actually.
outstanding. And I didn't see at the end, spoiler alert, I didn't see that he was going to take his life. I didn't see that coming.
Nah, neither did I.
Got me.
Yeah.
My wife did. She kept quiet, but she was like, "What do you think? You see that coming?" That got me.
Yeah.
But movies, love movies. Date. Well, here's another one. Date night. You know.
Yeah.
It's very
do you do that?
we do. We try to do it as often as we can. It used to be Nando's and cinema. Now it's paddleboarding. Now it's running. It is, and it's cooking outside. And it used to be going to North Berwick for a big steak dinner. Now it's cooking our own steaks. And the kids in bed. We don't have to leave our house and we have a date night because we're doing different things together.
Yeah.
And the prep of the food is one of the great sides of it.
Yes.
Prepping a steak or cutting chicken, whatever it may be, and you know that fire's raging outside. That's how Abby and I have sort of changed what we do.
Yeah.
And we can't see ourselves ever going back. We'll still go to Nando's now and again, and the new movie's out, we'll go and see it. But we prefer. We would try too hard to. We've got to go out. We've got to go and do something.
Mm-hmm.
Where we live, we're lucky. We're close to the beach in Longniddry and East Lothian.
It's lovely there.
So we can just sort of cross the road and be on the water. And if it's a nice calm night, we can paddleboard to Aberlady, go down to Gullen, paddleboard, and we're out. You know.
Mm.
So things like that, and again, that's using time better.
Mm-hmm.
Not rushing to get to a cinema time. Oh God,
yes.
We've only got 10 minutes. We'll go to Five Guys instead of Nando's because that's quicker.
Yeah.
We've changed a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We've changed a bit in that respect.
Mm-hmm. Before we started this, one of the things that I always do, and actually before you arrived, I had done a guided meditation and a bit of Wim Hof breathing, but I always just close my eyes and breathe and just center myself and just sort of set an intention and focus on, what I'm doing and why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any sort of spiritual practices? Do you do any yoga or meditation or anything of that nature?
Yoga, Abby's big on yoga.
Yeah.
She will go to the retreat, not retreats, but there are sessions in East Lothian and things like that. She's big on yoga and enjoys that. And I have done yoga.
Mm-hmm.
We do it a lot. We put the computer on YouTube and do it at home.
Yeah. I
need to do it more purely to just keep everything flexible. Running miles and running sand dunes and training and things like that. I'm not getting any younger. I historically had hamstring problems when I played a lot of rugby, and stretching was the way to repair them, etc., etc. Breathing and things like that, I've not done it. I know is it Wim Hof? Wim
Hof, yeah.
Is he the cold guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he does the ice dunks and all that sort of stuff. I've seen him, I've heard all about him. But no, I can't say that the breathing and things like that I'm overly into.
Okay.
But yoga certainly, I need to get better at it. Just lower back pains. I think I rarely meet guys my age that don't have maybe a twinge in their back and problems like that. So I know yoga helps a lot of guys.
Yes, yeah. I'd love to see how your life might change if you did, 30 or 60 days of meditating or something. Man, breathing, 100%.
What do you get from it?
I mean, I don't do it like absolutely religiously, but I mean, I've done it enough that I'm aware of it. I mean, that it's scientifically proven that it has, like, physiologically. I mean, your brain changes after doing a certain amount of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, it's the ability to be able to. I mean, one of my friends used an analogy, and I think it was Tim Ferriss that originally said this, but it's like, when you meditate, if you could imagine your thoughts are like a washing machine, like your thoughts are the clothes in a washing machine. And if you, in everyday life, you're like in the washing machine, it's like all these things are going off and it's just total chaos and you're fighting fires and whatnot. Meditation gives you the ability to be able to stand outside of the washing machine and look in and see the clothes or the thoughts just moving. Okay. Without having any of the, there's no sort of like emotional engagement with it. You're detached then. You are the, whatever you want to call it, consciousness, light, God. You're just the observer of the thoughts. The thoughts aren't you. There's separation between the thought and what you are at the core.
And do you need to listen to something, music or someone speaking to get you into that? Or
personally, I just tend to, because I like sort of guided meditation, someone just talking you through something. It's very definitive start and end point. So I put on like a 10-minute mindfulness meditation, but there's just, they're everywhere. You can find things on YouTube 7-minute long or longer. So I've done, quite a few things a bunch of things like that. I was doing sauna-based meditation. Right. Quite semi-religiously recently, so 20 minutes. I mean, it's weird because Joe Rogan was doing this as well, and I didn't know he was doing it whilst I was doing it. But you just crank the sauna right up, sit in the sauna, I put earbuds in, and then just close my eyes, and then just focus and just allowing, not engaging with the thoughts. If the thoughts come up, then fine, but, you're not governed by them. Mm-hmm. And the challenge in that environment, because it's so extreme, is that there's that little voice like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. You're getting cooked. What the hell are you doing? Yeah. And you're just kind of letting that drift off. So that's powerful. But I've done Wim Hof method. I've done it twice submerged in 20 bags of ice in a big paddling pool up to here. Twice like that, and once going into like a really cold reservoir.
I'm big on Instagram. You'll see me jump in the sea all the time. That's kind of my reset.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, all the time. Morning, night, doesn't matter what's happening. If I've done a run, if I've not, and I have a wee thing. If you come to my house and you're there for a while, you're coming in the sea. That gets a lot of people like, oh shit, it's freezing. I don't have any shorts, and I'm like, there's a pair. Let's go. So no, cold water, I like that. I like that it's a challenge. It's the takes your breath. You've got to try and stay in as long as you can. Most of the time I'm in, I'm straight out. But it's the usual. Once you've been in once, get back in. Yeah. So I put a lot of that on social media because, like I say, there's a platform where I live that you can jump in when the tide's in. And it's great. I love it. So I get it. I understand the meditation. I've just never done it. But I do like to find something that will reset or recharge and cold water does that for me.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it is, for sure. I mean, when I've done it, I've always done breathing beforehand, which basically Wim Hof breathing changes your body chemistry, so you become alkaline, and it just, it just feels very surreal, I guess. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I'll follow you up and see how your meditation practice is going.
Do that, and I'll get you down, jump in the sea.
Let's do it.
But see that the jumping in the sea and things like that. And I believe a lot, and again, it's since I'm getting into podcasting and listening to these people that are out there, a few of them we've mentioned, is getting uncomfortable.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Turn of the year, this year, when coming into 2019, is the first time I've ever really set out plans for a year. And there were basically like things I want to achieve, whether it be get up Ben Nevis, which we've done. And I've started through the year, I've added more things on, run my first marathon, which I've done. I've got an ultra marathon, my first one with Abby coming up in October, 35 miles. So we're challenging ourselves, we're pushing ourselves and finding the time to do it. But getting uncomfortable, and that's like a David Goggins thing and all these guys, but it's true. If you just stay comfy and you and nothing's pushing you, or you just go through the same motions and the same grinds, you're not going to get anything different. You're not going to change anything. So hence, like, I'm evolving the podcast because I want it to change. In life, things have got to maneuver and be sort of the liquid side of things that you got to
Yeah,
be able to move with it.
Yeah.
So getting uncomfortable, whether it's jumping in the sea, whether it getting up at early. My goal when I ran my marathon, I've only done one. I'm no great shakes. Just done one. There's people who've done millions, hundreds, and run 200 miles, but I've done one.
Yeah.
I've ticked the box for me. But my goal for that was I want to do a marathon and get home in time to take my daughter to school. So my challenge was that's a 4:30 start. And I did it. And I got home and I've got it on video of me taking her to school, met her at the gates, and then we walked. You know, and that was my challenge, and that was it. But it was uncomfortable and it was brutal. And I know exactly where I was at 17 miles, and I know exactly where I was at 20 miles, and I was ready to quit each time. Each time I looked at there were the 2 times that I looked at my phone. I was logging on Strava, which I used to trail my runs. I was ready to quit, but I didn't. I kept going, and I recorded it all, and I made the school run. But I got uncomfortable, and from there, I was saying to my wife, what should I do next? So I started doing more half marathons. So I'll do another marathon this month, probably just from my house and go, not recorded, not at Edinburgh Marathon, no medal at the end, but just because it will be uncomfortable. If I feel myself sort of oozing into a comfort zone and I'm not pushing myself, or I'm getting lazy, or I'm eating the wrong things, something's got to reset.
Yeah.
So I do that quite a lot, but getting uncomfortable, it's a place that not everybody likes. But as I was saying, at the turn of the year, I made that list to keep me uncomfortable. Because everything on it, and some of them was go fishing. I've never been fishing in my entire life. It's not going to make me uncomfortable, but to get there and to organise it, I'm going to have to sacrifice some things. But running marathons and climbing Ben Nevis and all that sort of stuff, they're physical challenges. But I just don't want to, for now, looking forward, the guy Jesse Itzler, how many summers have you got left? You know? If I last to 80, 45 summers left. Not a lot. 45 times to enjoy maybe paddleboarding, 45 times to do bits and pieces. What that guy preaches, I'm listening. I like it, and a lot of people don't think like that. I've got tons of time, I'm young. But no, we're not. You sort of run out of time of running marathons. You run out of time of balancing on a paddleboard, unless you keep yourself fit and healthy. So, changes a lot. Changes a lot in the things I do.
What's your perception or relationship with death?
I've not had a lot of death in my life,
right?
Which is a good thing. I just haven't. Grandparents, they're all gone now, but I was young when they went. Fortunate, both parents, everyone's still here, and I'm an only child. But not a huge family, which is I think why I wanted, and Abby and I 3 kids and a busy home with lifestyle, because I wasn't used to it. She's one of 3, but I certainly wasn't, and 3 certainly busy. There's certainly a lot going on at the house. But with death, it scares me for the point of I've got so much to look after, and in my 3 kids and in Abby and everything that we've got and the company that I've built, there's a lot there. The company can go, that's fine, but I've got so much left and so much to see in these kids that I want to see it all. I want to be there with it. I want to be around the fires with them and cooking and climbing things, and work-life balance and blend of everything sometimes isn't possible to be everywhere, but still being in and affecting their life is what's so crucial to me. And I didn't know that until my daughter was my firstborn, until everything changed when she came along, and how you've got to sacrifice things and change the priorities. But death, I think it is scary. A lot of people say I'm not scared of death, and it's the unknown, not knowing what happens next, and that's it. It's closed. Life's over. I almost don't understand it. It's so sudden and so. It's a hard one to explain, but it's something that I have try not to think about too much.
Is that right?
Yeah, I try not to think about it too much. Definitely. It goes back to what I'm saying, and setting challenges for this year and doing things I want to live.
Yeah, totally. But a lot of people use death as a means of, kind of driving them forward. Like they're kind of aware of this thing on the horizon, and they want to tick off certain things, before that happens. And you never know when that's going to be. You can only make an assumption. And, it's like, right, I need to get these things done. They use it as like the catalyst for them to live their best life.
I get that. I don't I don't think of it like that.
No.
I don't think of it like that at all. I don't think I'm going to die one day or soon. I need to pack in as much. Just keep going. Keep getting up early. Keep whether it's running miles, making the kids laugh, cooking around fires, podcasts. Keep life going. Keep busy. I do like being busy. My wife maybe say different. She says, "Oh, you're moaning. We've got to go there. We've got to go here." But no, I'm like you listed it earlier, from business to kids to podcasting to fitness, busy. And I love it.
What are you running from?
Running from nothing.
No?
Nothing.
Because a lot of people keep themselves busy to occupy themselves from, existential dread or whatever it is, or something that they don't want to like face or necessarily address it. So I was just curious whether you thought there was any reason that you're like, I'll keep myself busy doing stuff.
No. I'm not running from anything. I just want to. Keeping busy to me is important because it keeps me healthy.
Okay.
It keeps my mind focused. It keeps I don't know. Does it keep things? I won't say people guessing, but what am I going to do next? It's important to me. Ace Property is my steady.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had lots of businesses, as I said earlier, that have failed. I've set up online businesses. I've set up, the QR codes.
Yeah.
I had a QR code business that failed.
Is that right?
Couldn't get it off the ground. It was an interesting one because the QR codes, and this is just an example of things that I've tried over the years. I thought I'm going to get into that, and I had a business partner, and we found a supplier who could create these codes for us. But what it did, it made my letting agency, all the adverts in the window, it made my window interactive,
mm-hmm.
which still people don't necessarily have.
Mm.
So someone could stand at the window with their phone,
mm-hmm.
download the QR code, and all my information from my company comes straight to their phone.
Hmm.
So people can obviously just Google the address and things like that, but it was quite cool.
Yeah.
Couldn't get other businesses to take it on. Then John Lewis, on their Christmas advert many years ago, when people started to get POS TVs, there was a QR code. Then they were everywhere. And so little Alan tried to get something off the ground. Couldn't happen. People would just go to the main suppliers and get them, because you do see them quite regularly now.
Yeah.
That was one thing. I failed at it, but I tried.
Mm.
So fire pits and cooking outside is new to me, but I've tried it and I love it. Running distance, I've always been able to run.
Yeah.
But a lot of rugby, it's faster stuff. Now I'm running distance. I've tried it and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Other things, I didn't enjoy that, and that's not for me. But you got to try things and got to keep going. And if it's not for you, you don't have to keep doing it.
So what is the thing that ultimately drives you?
It's just living. It's just, I want to podcast. I want to be with my kids. I want to be at work. I want to keep doing things these things make me happy. So
happiness.
So there is. Maybe it's happiness. Maybe it's happiness. I want to be happy. If I'm down in the dumps, which happens, bad days at work, things go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
One of the kids had really bad illness when he was born, 9 days old. You're unhappy. You're sad. You're scared. So find the happiness. Find the thing that changes your mindset. And a lot of people talk about fitness and getting outdoors, and a bad day at work. What would you do? Go for a run. Go and play rugby. Go and box, hit a bag, which I've seen you doing recently.
Yeah.
Finding happiness. Yeah, maybe we've got there. You got that out of me. Finding happiness. And if I can bring people along with me, Abby and her running and the kids, whatever they're doing, that'll make me happy. But it's sometimes hard to achieve, though.
Yeah.
Very hard.
For
Can't
sure.
be happy all the time.
No, that's right. Meditation might help.
I'll try it. I'll let you know how it goes.
It's taken us nearly an hour to get to where I expected we would get into immediately, which is awesome. The conversation flows effortless. I love it. What was your childhood like?
Childhood, as an only child.
Because I don't want to put words into your mouth, but you said that earlier as though that might have been almost like a negative experience, because you said you had more kids because you wanted more family.
No, not negative.
No?
Not negative in the slightest. No, very, very lucky. Great parents. Great childhood. Got opportunities, and hardworking dad. Hardworking mum.
Yeah.
So I was shown. I got into the property industry through my dad. I mean, he got that background, so I'd get taken to work and things like that. And probably knew from quite a young age this is what I quite like. Clearing out flats, getting dirty. That would be dad on a Sunday. We'd be out ripping stuff off walls, getting ready for decorators. So I got a taste of that quite early. But childhood, no, a lot of sport. Great friends, great environment. I can't complain. I've not got a story of it was really hard and the lights weren't on and there was no food.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I'm very privileged to the fact that my parents were fantastic and hardworking.
Mm-hmm.
It's but something that definitely, and Mum won't mind me saying this, from Dad's side, I understand what hard work is.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that putting the work in will get results,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand that you got to turn up every time, regardless of how bad it was yesterday or how bad it might be today. You got to go, and you got to sort it. And if you do something wrong, you apologise.
Yeah.
You can make up the mistakes, and not everybody's going to enjoy what you have to say or you do or the action you take. But you got to turn up, and that's something we all live by.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was speaking about this with a psychologist on my podcast last week. That I think I owe a lot to my parents in that respect. That it certainly wasn't a tough, but they were strict. They were strict, and they wouldn't let me away with the cheekiness or the being a chancer. So no, it was a great upbringing, but they knew how to sort of rein me in to the point of that's been instilled in me,
Mm-hmm.
that I know I'll be dishing that onto my kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know. I'm not a Love Island guy. I'm not in that sort of world where
Yeah.
if my kids are, I don't think they'll know about it. Growing up, it won't be on in our house. You know, if I have my way, they can go the routes they want. But I learned a lot through rugby and through property, through Dad's influence of what he was interested in. If my kids and the way they are, kids copy you. You know, a lot of people do turn into what their parents are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just a fact of life. You look at a lot of scenarios, and that's what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
If my
Mhm.
kids copy what their mum and dad do, they'll be outside a hell of a lot. They'll be probably fit and healthy and trying new things, and we'll be pushing them into those avenues and directions.
Mm-hmm.
We're not watching Love Island. I don't watch X Factor or get
Yeah.
excited because the new season started. it doesn't happen in our house, and most likely the way the track record is that the kids will probably copy that.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they end up. But no, certainly I enjoy the 5 because I'm not used to 5. You know, the 3 kids plus me and Abs, and we've got the dog as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a busy house, which I'm definitely not used to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as an only child, I didn't know what it was like to have brothers and sisters, so I didn't know what I missed. No, I had no issues with it.
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, I was an only child, and I personally wouldn't have had it any other way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd have liked having a sibling. I'm too selfish for that. It would have just been competition.
Yeah, but then you might have known, you wouldn't have known any other way, so you probably would have had to share.
Yeah, that's probably true. But I think what I gained from being an only child was that I felt as though it forced me to go out and make friends and, you know, meet people and
Yeah.
do that sort of stuff.
Well, it's like going on holiday. Your mum and dad would go away and find you a wee pal, you know, and they keep you busy for a week, 2 weeks in Cyprus. And that always happened. You'd find a
Yeah.
wee pal.
Or I spent time with my parents, which
Yeah.
I suppose, you know, and I've reflected on this, it probably encouraged me to grow up quite quickly.
Mm-hmm. Independent.
Because I don't know about independent so much, but just, you know, in terms of just having like adult to adult conversations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not going to speak to you just like you're a child. They're just going to speak to you like.
What I certainly know came from being an only child, and Abby will say, I have no problems being on my own. I have no problems, whether it's running or being on my own, or no one's in the office if I'm in early. I'm not looking for conversation. I'm not looking, I can be on my own, I can be in groups.
Yeah.
But I do find as I'm older, I tend to stay away from groups more. I tend to stay away. The urge of going into town, into busy places isn't happening.
Yeah, I'm the same, man. It must be a maturation thing because I've become probably more introverted, I would say,
Yeah,
as I've aged.
definitely.
I was looking last night at some quotes. I love just looking at people having said quotes on my phone or whatever. And it was, I think it's Jim Carrey, who was saying that, like, solitude is very addictive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being on your own and not having ultimately, I guess, your energy affected by negative external stimuli a lot of the time is how it is.
There's another one, I don't know if it was Tom Hardy that said it, but his picture's beside it. You know, a lot of these things are made up and they put a celebrity beside it to get the
Fake
clicks.
news.
Fake news. But, and I won't get this right, but it's something to do with, there's a lot to be said for a guy that enjoys his own company, cooks his own meal and doesn't talk to anybody and is comfortable in his own home.
Yeah.
You know? I'm like, that's me. That's me. All the kids and everything's crazy. If no other stranger comes in and sees me for the whole weekend, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm all right.
Yeah.
You know, but then come Monday, and my business is Monday 9 to 5. That's where the office is open. My roles and responsibilities are whenever I'm required.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are 365, 24/7 for emergency call-outs and all sorts of things. So I'm interacting with people all the time. All the time, and it'd be tenants, tradesmen. So I have to have the skills to interact.
Yes.
But as I say, if I'm on my own, absolutely fine. It's no problem.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I probably originally knew you. I mean, I know you laterally. You went to private school, and there seems to be this sort of Edinburgh almost incestuous thing about people that went to private schools, probably drank in some other places when they got a little bit older, and just sort of seemed to know other people through osmosis or having mutual friends or whatever it is. What was your experience of private education or the education system?
Well, I went to George Watson's College, and if I'm honest, I loved it.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I wasn't very good at it.
Is that right?
No, I never took to education.
No.
Hence, probably why now the job I'm in, I went for experience and climbed a ladder, and then opportunities arose and built a business. Academic, going to university was never for me, but I found rugby. Rugby was very good to me. It's let me travel and all these sorts of things at age group level and onto Watsonians, FPs and things. But I think what private schools done for me, it gave me confidence. There is a lot of all schools are like this, but speaking in front of groups, rugby and captaining teams. I'm speaking in front of teams. I'm talking to coaches. I'm speaking in other rugby clubs and things like that. It definitely helped. And I think Watson's, with their rugby culture and the sport that they've got, that was very good for me. And you see a lot of internationalists come through schools like that and go on to bigger and better things. So, no, I loved my time at school. I don't know what route my kids are going to go. They're going to the local village school for primary school. We don't know what we'll do later in life.
Really?
Yeah, we don't know. It's slightly early. There's people putting names on lists and all sorts of things at the moment. We haven't jumped to that.
I was literally 3 days old, and because I met my dad recently for a drink at a curry, and I thought I was right in saying that, but I never said it just because in case I was wrong. But I was 3 days old when he signed me up for Stu Mel.
Is that right?
3 days.
Yeah, no,
crazy.
We've not signed up for anything like that, but they might go down that route, and I just don't know yet.
So what would be the sort of pros and cons? What is it you're weighing up?
What I've certainly see now, and what am I? Almost 20 years out of school. You know, I've still got tons of friends that are in business now that I trusted at school that I would trust now. That's something that people will have that in every school, but in my school, my experience is that other well-educated kids came out of that school and they're still close to me. You know, so I've been able to hold on to a lot of friendships. They might not think that. Maybe I'm not great at keeping up to date with everyone, but a lot of people, you don't see them for years, for decades, and it's as if you never met. It never lost touch.
Of course, yeah.
But I know there's a lot of people that came out of school that they've gone on to great things, and you catch up with them. And the way social media is now, you do reconnect, and you maybe start working with each other, or you trust each other at least because you know where you both came from. Okay, but I don't know. Abby and I just haven't had that conversation as yet. We had to sort out primary school. We sorted out nursery, got through that. We've still got one that's 2, so he's got a couple of years to go. But I don't know. Do I want them to go to Watson's? Probably. I probably would like them to go through that. We also, logistically, living in East Lothian, it's got its challenges. Yeah. So if they get to the school bus, 2 hours of their day is going to be on a bus. That's got to be considered. You know? And at that point, who knows, will I be coming into work every day? Will I've done something new in East Lothian? I don't know. So we're not committing to too much as yet. We're happy. The little school that they go to at the moment is brilliant and we love it. And it's, what I'd say is, where we are in Long Nidri, it's a great village environment. Great environment. The neighbour, we all talk. You know, we all talk, and you hear so many people, other people in little areas and vicinities that never met their neighbour, didn't see anybody, that guy hates me, and all that sort of stuff. If you kick the ball into their garden, you're not getting it back, that sort of thing. We've been very lucky and found a lot of kind people. So it's been great.
Did you go to Watson's Primary as well then?
6 and 7.
That's right, okay.
6 and 7. Went to the same school that my mum teached at for most of junior, then moved. And then, but senior school, it was to get me in for senior school, and I think Dad had a inkling that I might like rugby. I'd never played rugby until I went to the school. And I did it, took off and loved it, and got into all sorts of sports, and cricket and athletics and things like that. It was great.
How would you describe your rugby career?
I'm pleased with everything I did.
Yeah.
You know, I gave it a good crack at the whip, and as a schoolboy and playing for captain Scotland under 19 and then into the 21s, and a little tiny bit with Edinburgh Rugby, and then mostly with Watsonians. Some people have said maybe if I'd kept going I might have got a bit further. I certainly fell out of love with it in my mid to late 20s. Fell out of love with it and didn't play so much. A lot of injuries throughout it, but I'd say I'm pleased with what I did.
Did you aspire to play for Scotland?
When I played age group rugby, yeah, you want to kick on. When you're representing Scotland under 21, I think you desperately want. And in that leap, I wasn't a player that from 21s went straight into a full contract or anything like that. I was Scotland under 19 captain, and then I didn't get picked for Scotland under 21 the first year, which some people might have said strange. I was young enough to have 2 years in Scotland under 21, so it didn't bother me that much because I would still hopefully be getting the next year. But I played a good game at Stirling and I scored a hat trick, and then the manager came straight into the changing room in front of everyone after and said, "Nash, training 21s on Monday," and I got in. So I did get in. I didn't get in the first squad round, but I kept playing well and eventually got in. So I got 2 years at that. But the highlight, I captained Watsonians and we won the Scottish Cup in 2006 at Murrayfield and I scored a try. So for me, I'm delighted. That was a bit of a highlight for me, that with my club, got to captain them. And
I was thinking schoolboy, I was like, that doesn't stack up. But sorry, you're talking about club rugby.
Club rugby,
Yeah,
FPs.
FPs.
I got you. Yeah, so I got that chance and I scored a try at Murrayfield, so I've got that. But what's happened with me, I never made it pro, I never did all that sort of stuff, but like even talking about it here, I've not played rugby in a long time now. It's still it's associated with me, you know. So I had a good crack at it and I enjoyed it.
Did you expect that you would play for Scotland?
No, never expected it. No, I never expected it. And it got to that point where maybe you don't get picked, and then when you feel yourself falling out of love with it, and rugby, it's a huge commitment for an amateur sport. When I was playing it, it's a huge commitment. And then at the time, I had started building Ace Property from the age of 21.
Wow.
So I had other things going on. I had a business to build, and through credit crunches and through all sorts of things, our commitment had to go one way or the other. And I'm glad that I now have my business. It's 14 years old, and I've got good staff, a great team, premises and things like that. And I'm still very well connected to the rugby world, which kind of comes full circle with the Property Rugby Club. It's
totally.
I've been able to sort of keep my foot in both camps.
Yeah. Who was Scotland fullback during your era then? Shouldn't I think of that?
What now? As in
no, like when you were
a kid.
When you were say under 21s, and it was like somebody was in that position that would prevent you from this, you know, kind of being in that position. Do you know who it might have been? I'm just trying to think.
I can't remember. Chris Patterson's probably the start. He's probably a few years older than me.
Yeah.
Guys like Chris, but I mean, it's funny how things come full circle. That, I mean, growing up, Gavin Hastings was the fullback, the lion, the captain. He was the man. He now uses office space. He now sits in my room and sits at a desk because he's best friends with my business partner.
Oh, okay.
You know, he's really close to. They're really close. They played at Watsonians in different eras to me.
Okay.
So I've known Gav and Scott and all these guys for many, many years and been so close to the rugby community that it's not surreal. He's now, I can phone Gav and what's happening. Where are you? You golfing? What we doing? But back in the day, you're watching this guy on TV, and when you're that young, you think, I want to do what he does. You know, and there'll be a lot of kids like that.
Yeah.
So just to have Gav come in and British Lions captain and things like that, and say he's sitting in my office, it's cool. It's great.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah. One of the things that I think we maybe touched on it when I was in your podcast, and I see quite a lot of it, and my perspective of this probably isn't necessarily everyone's. I take a cynical view on this, actually, is like rugby players that finish their career or they exit that profession for whatever reason and then go into like the corporate world. And I see it with people that have maybe been in the military or whatever as well, and it's because like they've been in a sort of a perceived leadership role that sort of translates into the business world. And I'm like, but I don't think it does. It doesn't, because you're not like, I can see the sort of commonalities, if that's what you want to call them, but ultimately business is business and sport's sport. So like, to be successful in business, you have to be good at business. Being good at rugby or being in a position of authority in some other field doesn't necessarily directly translate.
I felt
You might say otherwise.
With the Property Rugby Club, a big core of that was trying to help players. It's the unknown of, I mean, big money. Football is a whole different scale that I've had bits and pieces of association with the football players, Hearts, Hibs, Celtic, Rangers and things like that, with properties and all that sort of thing. But rugby I'm so close to. And when these guys come out of rugby and they've been on good money, what are they going to do next? So I've spoken to a lot of them and they still contact me that they're maybe still contracted, they're still playing for Scotland, but we're looking at the future. I would like to get into to property. I want to be a surveyor, banking, whatever route it may be. But there are a lot of transferable skills. And I mean, I didn't have a lot of property skills, but I had my first CV when I got a job at a company called the Edinburgh Property Manager. It's just rugby. I went to school, a couple of hires, and I'm a rugby player. But the rugby got me the job because the guy was an ex-Jumel pupil rugby player, and he's now a client of mine now. I look after stuff for him. It's all come full circle. But rugby got me in the door. So I know what you mean. They maybe played rugby for 15 years and never set foot in an office and no business skills, but you can acquire business skills. A lot of business is people skills. A lot of businesses, if I go in to pitch to a new landlord, they'll know that my fees are going to be very similar to the company across the road. They'll know that my gas safety certificate, everything that we charge and all the bits and pieces, we need to do the same legislation and compliance checks that company does. But if I walk in and they buy into me, and the other guy was just no personality, was rude, he couldn't relate, and I've got a better chance of getting the business. And rugby and sport brings out a lot of personality. There's a lot of things to talk about. Imagine you're Gavin Hastings and you're a British Lions captain and you turn into becoming a property broker or a surveyor, and you walk in, you're probably going to get a lot of your business because people want to work with you, people want to be around you, people want to hear your stories. They're not if your fees are ridiculous and you're way off the ballpark with your knowledge, but knowledge will come. And it's like anything. When these guys first played rugby, they were probably crap. But over time, they get better at tackling, and then they never miss a tackle. Then they become a Scotland great. A business will want these guys, and if they've got their head screwed on and they've been well presented and they've been sort of they've just been sensible through their professional career, the business acumen will come. The balance that sport and the exposure sport can give you, and the experiences it can give you, the worldly experiences, can be big assets to companies.
I mean, totally. I take that on board. I suppose where I think it is perhaps unfair is where it's to the detriment of somebody that might have filled that role otherwise, that they're getting it based on their rugby playing prowess, when you've got a guy who's worked in the field for 15 years and there's roles come up and it's perfect for him, and then the rugby guy gets it based on like his perceived celebrity or whatever it is. But again, we're maybe getting a little bit off the topic there. Anyway, it's personal gripe, mate.
I can see your side as well.
Who's your favourite rugby player of all time?
The guy, he's not my position, but Richie McCaw is probably the one that a lot of people say. He was just the top of his game. He never quit. There was no, you think, he's done his ankle, he's there next week. You know, that guy, I think he's a record cap holder, World Cup, you name it, he's done it. And he wanted to be under the radar. He had no real interest in being in the spotlight. He let the standoffs do that. He just worked. I've got something, I like people that work. On Instagram the other day, I was driving down Shandon to Gorgie I was inspecting flat or whatever I was doing, and I saw a kid at a lemonade stand. It literally happened, and I love that. I mean, there is so much of the world now that kids don't know they have to work because everything's given to them as entitlement. It's out there, and it's going to happen, and we've got to protect our kids from that. And a lot of that comes from parenting. But this kid was out in the street, so I did my thing, and I said, if he's there on the way back, I'm going to stop. And he was, and I did. So I took a photo of him, had a chat with him, because he inspired me. Like I said, why are you here? He says, my bike's broken. And I'm thinking, well, mum and dad aren't giving him the money. This is good. How are you getting on? He says, well, that's my second bottle of lemonade and you're taking the last glass. He'd been out there crafting. It was 30 pence, that's all he wanted for each cup. But I said, good luck, good on you. Then he put the work in. So when I look at guys like Richie McCaw, I think it's pretty well established that he worked. And probably had no right to get to where he did, but he was no one could outwork that guy. No one could out tackle him, you could outplay him because he wasn't the most skillful, but for work rate, he was a man. you know. And I know he's the famous one, and if I thought about it real deep, I could probably find somebody under the radar that was just a great grafter, you know. But Richie McCaw, I mean, he's inspiring, and to this day, I still wonder what's he doing now, you know. But this is maybe a bit deep, and you talked about death earlier. Instantly, Richie McCaw went into flying helicopters. Okay, and that's what his passion is: helicopters and flying and things like that. And then I think about guys like Steve Irwin. You know, you know, did his thing, got killed by a fish. You know, Colin McRae. You know, race car driver, died in a helicopter. So many of these guys need to stay at the top. They need to keep pushing. They can't just go and work in an office. They need to keep at a level, and you just hope that they stay safe. You know, they stay safe because they've done their thing. Yeah, they've been there, done it, and he's won the World Cups, and he's still pushing it, and he'll be remembered forever for rugby. But you just hope something else doesn't just happen that is so bad. Schumacher, greatest driver of all time, skiing, maybe got him. You know, these guys, they have to keep pushing the limits, they won't quit. As I keep saying, they just don't quit. I don't know how to switch off. Sometimes other things gets them, and I saw Richie McCaw. Oh God, Richie, just stay safe. You're a legend. I want you to be around. I want to hear you talk about rugby. I want to hear you analyse rugby now. I want you to be in this world. That happens a lot. Yeah,
but I guess the only parallel in ordinary life is when somebody's maybe done a career and then they retire. It's just having that thing that you do, and that you're, you know, it kind of gets you out of bed, and it's like it's habit or routine, and then when you stop doing it, it's like there's just nothing.
Well, Chris Hoy, he's racing cars and doing 24-hour races and all that, and you're on a bike and you're the best there ever was, and we all love you. Just be careful. That's all I'm saying. These guys, they're such legends, and we love having them in our world. Just keep pushing the limits, but just be careful.
We'll wrap up soon, mate. But I just want to, because we haven't really touched. I mean, we've kind of, in an oblique sense, touched on business, but not sort of directly. But I mean, what's the future hold for Ace Property? Where do you see your business going? What's the focus?
A lot of restructure at the moment.
Is that right?
After 14 years, and there's a lot of legislation change in lettings. Through leases have changed, or a lot of regulation on landlords and letting agents. So a lot of restructuring, a lot of change software systems. It's a bit mundane and boring for this chat, but it takes time. It takes time and effort, and you've got to learn, and you've got to sometimes go back to scratch. But I think the thing is just to keep learning. And we make mistakes. Everyone does. You make mistakes, you got to sort them out, you got to own up to them. So with my business, I'm 14 years into it. I think, again, the podcasting has sort of changed a lot I do, but I feel 14 years into it, we're just getting started. Yeah. I really do, yeah. At 35 years old, I've got a lot of life still to live, but how I work that balance over the years of this, the kids grow and they need me at things. But I do enjoy, I've got a bit of flexibility. You know, the kids, when they've got their shows or they've got their sports days, I can be there. So I think having grown the business and got it to a stage where it can work, I'm there daily, I'm there often first in, last to go, but there's a bit of manoeuvrability which I do like. I do like that balance. But a lot of my role, as I said earlier, it's new business, it's building the brand, it's maybe social media stuff in the background, but fighting fires. When you're at the front, you're not just sort of there leading it and this is my company. You've got to be there when the shit hits the fan as well. And that can be a boiler at 12 o'clock on Christmas Eve. And you got to go. You got to do it. That's the industry I chose. That's the business I built, and that's the way I choose to do it. So, for Ace, I think the future's bright. I think Edinburgh lettings, and with universities, the number of universities we've got in town, the festival let's been affected this year with the changes of lets. But there's so much going on in Edinburgh. I do push out to East Lothian, some bits and pieces in St Andrews and other sort of student towns and things like that. But for Edinburgh and my business, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And it's an easy thing to say. A lot of people do say, if you don't enjoy it, just quit or just sell it. Nah, I'm not enjoying it. I've got to change it. I've got to evolve it. So we've spent a lot of time building it, and where will it go? Where will it take me? Met some fantastic people, and it's something that I'm proud of. You know, built it from one property. You know, so it's still there today. So keep going. But it affords me the time to get into other things as well, which I enjoy.
Brilliant stuff, Nashy. It's been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on. It's brilliant.
Come on, what about aliens?
Oh, jeez. Okay. Do I believe in the existence of aliens? Yes, absolutely. I don't see how you
But this
can.
is coming from Joe Rogan and Bob Lazar. Have you heard that interview?
I've not, no.
Yeah, well, he
No.
says he worked at
I might have seen clips of it.
Area
actually,
51 and he
Yeah.
worked on an alien spacecraft and
Yeah,
he's got
yeah.
9 of them. And that's all out there on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I was like, that's cool. I want there to be something. I just think we'd have found a lot more by now.
Oh, really?
How
With our limited technology, I mean, we can barely do like anything.
I know, but one would have crashed in Princess Street by now or something. Somewhere populated. One would have crashed.
If aliens are sophisticated enough to be able to fly from wherever it is in this infinite universe to get to us, they're probably in control of whether they're crash landing or not. You consider the potential for like wormholes in the universe, so you can basically just flex the whole thing and go like, through a tiny little, rather than going actually literally across the whole distance of it. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like in my mind, there's no question whatsoever that they exist. They just do. The fact that we might be the only intelligent life form in the entire universe is actually just beyond absurd. It's impossible.
But how have we not found one?
Well, as I say, like our capabilities are so limited. What's the furthest we've been? Like, I mean, we flew I don't know what you'd call it, but like a non-manned spacecraft to Mars, and we've been to the moon, like allegedly, because there's still
skeptical?
questions. Well, yeah, of course. There's questions that have arose from that. I've watched like so many conspiracy things on Netflix and whatnot.
I love it. I don't know the answers. Yeah. I'd love it. It's nice to think, and I want aliens to be out there. I want Bigfoot to be real, and I want Nessie to be swimming about. But Nessie's not happening. It's not.
No.
We would have found it by now.
Yeah, that's a no. That's
Bigfoot,
a no for me.
Nah, you'd have found something. But I like the thought that there is something.
I'm less conclusive on that, actually, I would say. Nessie, I don't think so. Yeah, I would say no for Nessie. Bigfoot, not 100% on.
Why? Someone would have found the body by now. And where? Is there tons of them? Himalayas, American forest, wilderness?
I know.
Nah. Come on.
Just thinking like what the probability of something living in water versus out of water. In my head, it just makes more sense that you would survive on land better than if you were in water. I think. I'm not sure.
I want them to all be there.
Yeah, totally.
However, I just think...
Here's a big one, though. 9/11.
Oh, jeez. It's just... I don't know where to go with that one. That's horrific. There's a lot of uncertainties in that. There's a lot of things in these documentaries that you watch and you think, really? Is that actually what happened? When the firemen, like qualified guys, are saying there was explosions going off around us as we stood in the lobby.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't an airplane.
No,
So I don't know about that one, but whatever happened, thousands lost their lives and it's horrific. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
That these things can happen and they can rock and change the world like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the conspiracy theory stuff, I'm big on it. The guy Jesse Ventura, you know him?
Jesse Ventura. Absolutely.
Jesse Ventura, he's big on the conspiracy theories and things like that.
Is.
I like hearing it all. I like getting all the info. I like to try and piece it together. I think I'm like everybody. You asked earlier on how I chill out and how I do bits and pieces. I'm like everybody. I do get lost in YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Going to bed sometimes you have the phone on and you'll just start watching things and you'll start gathering information of aliens and spacecrafts and the best street knockouts and all sorts of things as you dive and get lost in YouTube. It happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
People will deny it. People, no, I'm not into that. Or you're watching that nonsense. Everyone does it. It's there,
Classic. I reckon we could do a whole episode on conspiracy theories
probably
and the like.
Yeah. More than happy.
But this chat's been awesome, man.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
I've loved it. It's been really, really good.
Cool. Do it again sometime.
100%, my friend.
Awesome.
Cheers, mate.